Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much, Maurice. It was many, many years ago when we have met, and it was very interesting that time. Good afternoon to all of you. It's very nice to be Minister of Culture, but it's quite very tough job to give a speech after this wonderful performance and this wonderful music, I can tell you. But I'll try my best. Nicolas Seydoux, the president of Forum d'Avignon. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Dear ministers, dear colleagues, dear members of board of the Forum d'Avignon, I was asked to speak about the question, what is the right policy for government investment in culture in the times of economic crisis. So a few months ago, representatives of one of the largest states in Germany visited Israel and told us that during the global financial crisis, as we remember, 2008, they conducted a survey to discover where the public would tolerate cutbacks in public expenses, spending. Well, my friends, we were not in good company. After the first place, the prison system, the public chose cuts to the budget we all represent, the culture budget. The survey reflects the difficult challenge facing all of us ministers and all those who deal with culture all over the Western world, especially since the global economic crisis. We all acknowledge culture intrinsic value, its impact on society, and that it is a basic right of every citizen. But at the end of the day, during difficult financial times, both the public and the governments view government spending mainly through the prism of economic value. If an expenditure cannot be shown to have short or long-term economic value or to be necessary for the smooth running of the country, it ranks low in the order of public preference and is ready for the X. Well, culture does not promote social values alone, as we all know. Cultural endeavors constitute a major infrastructure of modern society. And therefore, investment in culture can serve as an impetus for economic growth. The financial crisis has forced us to change the prism through which we view government cultural investments to an economic prism. If in the past we spoke of governmental support for culture, we must now substitute the term governmental investment, an investment yielding both social and economic returns. Over the last decade, studies have shown that a government's investment in culture generates employment, extensive economic activity, and tax income. I need only cite that well-known McKinsey study, which found that New York State's income from taxes on cultural activities is more than 3 times its investment. A study conducted in Israel about 5 years ago found that every euro the government invests in culture turns into economic activity valued at 10 euros, of which more than 20% is returned to the state as tax income. These investments create a significant number of jobs in the cultural workplaces, as well as economic activity in related areas. The bottom line is that public spending on culture is paid back to the government and society at least twice over. Investment in culture is therefore one of the effective tools available to governments to increase economic growth and contend with financial crisis. But culture is not just a matter of economics, of course. First and foremost, it flavors our lives. Although a flower and a poem is no less essential to our lives than bread and butter, how do we give economic expression to the flavor of life? Measuring culture in economic terms is the complex challenge we all face when we manage our budgets. Must we evaluate each and every investment using financial yardsticks? Must we invest more in popular areas where there is greater economic activity and less in areas that are less in demand? What then would be the fate of the avant-garde and of artistic endeavors that are more complex and costly to produce? So let me suggest some standards of measurement that can help us reach decisions regarding the culture budget management. First, we must distinguish between entertainment and art. Whether an activity can be termed entertainment or whether it has reached the level expected of art is not always clear. Of course, we can consult, the expert senses of the advisors, but we can also apply a simple economic test. Can the endeavor survive without government support? Is there enough demand for it so that it can obtain adequate funding from independent income and other sources alone? The second would be when we struggle over how much to allocate to each artistic discipline. Three measurements should be considered: the extent of activity in the field, the cost of the endeavor, and the potential ticket sales. In disciplines where cost is high and potential sales are low, greater government investment is required compared to disciplines where cost is low and potential sales is higher. Working this way, we ensure the existence of board-based cultural infrastructure providing work for artists, different disciplines. A healthy cultural infrastructure is one that ensures artistic diversity and provides both internal competition and interdisciplinary dialogue. The 3-point is, as in high-tech and science, we too require incubators to nurture art born before its time. Today's avant-garde may become tomorrow's mainstream. Beethoven's late string quartets were considered so strange when they were composed that some even believed that the renowned composer had gone mad. Today, of course, these compositions are considered the heyday of the chamber music creativity. Well, of course, development does not always succeed. Fringe art does not often break through existing artistic standards. Even when it does, it rarely achieves a permanent foothold. But trial and error are the very essence of an incubator. We invest in incubators because of these rare instances that are crowned with success. They engender real change and ensure continuing cultural growth. They are cultural heritage of future generations. The fourth point is that another worthwhile standard of measurement is the geographic disbursement of our investment. It is no secret that cultural activity is primarily concentrated in the great urban centers, such as Tel Aviv in Israel, while creating cultural gaps, of course, between the cities and the periphery. In times of economic prosperity, there are ways to bridge these rifts, at least partially. In times of crisis, however, these rifts expand in ways that can threaten social stabilities. The periphery is usually the first to suffer from economic crisis, and its population is forced to cut back on cultural spending immediately. It is therefore essential that governments promote culture in the periphery and make cultural events readily accessible there. Last measurement is a project that must be included in any cultural investment work plan, is the digital preservation of tangible and non-tangible cultural property, making them accessible to the general public and ensuring the endowment of our cultural creativity upon future generations. This issue, of course, are dealt with extensively during the conference today and tomorrow, opening the door to cooperation and acknowledge sharing between the nations. Well, during the 2008 global economic crisis, of course, dramatic reductions in public spending in Israel were made. But I'm proud to say that I persuaded my government to make no cuts at all to the culture budget. On the contrary, the budget was increased in 2009 and 2010, and furthermore, further increases approved to 2011 and 2012, but still, wise management, of course, still is vital. Applying the guidelines I've just discussed, we have substantially increased investment in fringe arts and the work of independent artists. We have also improved distribution of the budget between disciplines. For example, the relative share of theater, which is the most popular, had decreased. By the way, in Israel, we are around 7 million inhabitants. We sell every year 7 million tickets for theater, first place in the world per capita. But we have decreased the budget. On the other hand, allocations to areas which had a smaller share in the past, such as dance and public libraries, have increased. We emphasize the promotion of culture in the periphery through special projects intended to reinforce habits of cultural enjoyment. Last spring, for example, we had a month of meetings with writers and poets all over the country. This summer, we had a series of free concerts and music shows in the periphery. Emphasis has been placed on Arab audiences in Israel and cities. In over 25 Arab communities, we had a specially produced theater festival. This year, we established a new opera festival held in the foot of Masada, the mountain symbolizing the 2,000-year-old struggle of Jews for freedom. We encourage creators and artists who work with the periphery and promote cooperation between Israel's major cultural institutions and peripheral communities. This plants stable seeds of creativity in the periphery which grow and merge with our national cultural infrastructure. Just to give you an example, our famous Camry theater company has adapted a group of amateur actors from Sderot. And together, the actors have mounted professional production that still is running and presented all over the country, selling tickets, of course. The results of Israel's investment in culture are evident over the country, but more, I think, all over the world. Our dance companies, such as Batsheva and Bal Pinto, are invited to appear on the finest stages on the world. Our cinema industry has achieved international success, as you, of course, all know. And so on. I will not go on and on. Israel have launched, this year we have launched a national program for the digital preservation of the non-tangible cultural property of the State of Israel. A special government decision budgeted 30 million euros over the next 5 years for the purpose of carrying out an extensive digitalization program. On that issue, we see a significant importance of cooperation between Europe and Israel in order to exchange knowledge and technology in order to promote the preservation of our cultural heritage. And I want to personally to thank Minister of Culture of France, Frédéric Mitterrand, with whom I'm in very good connections. I've met him, I believe, 3 times in the last year and a half. And he is the one that offered his help, France, of course, help in this issue and again, his cooperation. And very soon, this afternoon, we are going to sign an MOU between the 2 countries on this issue and some others issue as well. So at the beginning of my remarks, I noted that natural tendency to cut governments' culture budgets in times of economic crisis. I believe that the State of Israel has demonstrated that strengthening government investment in culture during such crisis helps us meet financial and social challenges successfully. And of course, I believe that it helps culture flourishing and increasing the access of every person to the beauty of the art. Thank you.
Limor, stay there. I have just one question.
Sure.
First of all, I would like to thank you very warmly. And if you remember this morning, we touched upon the fact that Jean Monnet said that if he had to build again Europe, he would do that through culture instead of economy. So the question I would like to ask you is, don't you think that culture could be an engine for peace in Middle East?
Yes, thank you for that. Well, I want to thank Tula from Tel Aviv for singing here. Yes, I believe, first of all, that culture can be the best ambassador and can be an engine for peace. I absolutely think so. Unfortunately, it's not enough. but it can be an engine. We need more in order to have peace in the Middle East, but it can be an engine, it can be an ambassador, it can be an ambassador for all of us. And I would, when I heard the guy that stood here speaking, I cannot remember his name, but when he spoke about 100 schools that he wants to initiate around the world of music, I thought to myself that he would, if he would come to Israel and initiate one school for Jews in a Jewish neighborhood and another one in Arab neighborhood, it would be great. But it's not enough, of course, and I wish to the day that the day comes when we would be able to exchange culture among us and our neighbors. Let me say that I pray that this day would come. You know that this beautiful group sang for peace. This was the name of the concert. In Hebrew, we say shalom. When we come and when we go, we say shalom. Shalom in Hebrew is peace. So let me and let us do whatever we can and pray together for peace, for shalom. Shalom.
Shalom, Limor. Thank you.